I have a task for you guys. I would ask that you guys call your representatives and ask for a reply from them, because you're going to get like their secretaries or whatever. But ask them to give you the legal definition of treason in America, like under our constitutional law. Ask them to define treason and look back at this presidency over the last 18 months or so, and ask them if they see evidence, or if they've seen abundant evidence that constitutes treasonous behavior. Because I would argue we have it in spades, but they're not speaking it. I'm tired of this "we are the minority" bullshit when they're capable of speaking. They can speak to the media. They can speak to the public. And they can tell them, listen, we have a serious problem. We have an entire party of neo-Confederate, fascist, treasonous traitors. They have turned our government against our people. They are looking at their political enemies, and they are drumming up bullshit charges that will not stick. They have attacked our media. They are attempting to basically have full state control of media. They've used their FCC chair to punish speech the president doesn't like. That is a blatant violation of our First Amendment. They're dehumanizing millions of people. They're attacking our voting rights. That's blatantly unconstitutional. And I don't know how much shenanigans they've already gotten up to, but everything related to our voting rights is under threat right now with this nonsense cheating with just unilaterally redrawing maps. And Republicans will sit there and try to say that there's any kind of justification for this at all. There isn't. These conversations didn't start until things were looking real unpopular already. And it seemed clear Trump was worried about losing the midterms. And then he calls to Texas and he says, I think I'm entitled to 5 more seats. And then it started. And thankfully, Democrats responded in kind, because back in 2021, Democrats proposed a bill that was going to ban gerrymandering nationwide and call for independent redistricting. Also called for automatic voter registration for legal people that had a legal right to vote, right? As well as giving them a free voter ID. So that would meet all the things that these guys are whining about if they actually cared about fair maps, fair representation, voter ID, right? And voter participation. That is not what Republicans want. Republicans have a whole mess of ways that they try to cheat, and now they're just going straight after voting rights. It seems like what they're trying to do is change the Constitution itself, and to get rid of the 14th and 15th Amendments, to get rid of women's rights, to force religion on all of us. When we are a secular nation, we have the Establishment Clause that says we will not, it bans, it prohibits establishing a state religion. It bans favoring any religion in law. So we have these fascist theocrats and neo-Confederates that want to take us back to the pre-civil rights era, because they are lost cause losers. They are narcissists. These capitalists cannot stand people actually standing up and pushing back because of all the fraud, all the theft, the legalized language that entitles corporations unending profits, even though they have already extracted basically everything they can. And now they're trying to basically just delete most of humanity. There's some discussions that some of these guys have said, we only want to have about 1 billion people on the planet. Hi, excuse me? So that's mass extermination of 7.4 billion people on the planet? So who are they leaving, I wonder? These guys are followers of Curtis Yarvin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's interested in technocratic feudalism. It's some sci-fi fantasy stuff that he misinterpreted and turned into practically a religion. But that basically means they want to carve up society into people that match up with their ideology, mostly just wealthy white people, or really a CEO running a technate, and everybody else is workers, serfs, and others that they don't like myself probably, because I'm an American patriot that actually cares about our Constitution. I care more than anything about expanded rights for all people. I don't want anyone excluded. I don't want anyone discriminated against. I want people to have the things that they need, and I want us all working together for something better, to build a better society, because there's no reason why people should go unhoused. There's no reason why people should go unfed. There's no reason why people should have to deal with other people engaging in violence against them, right? People should have high quality education, public education, childcare, leisure time, a retirement, early retirement with dignity, the ability to travel, to experience the world, and for us to be working on a global project, because it's a global system, man. The world's gotten smaller since we call this the nation's founding, even though we came with people here already and committed genocides and enslaved people. We owe a debt to a lot of people, and there's no reason to say that that's not the case, and there's no reason not to address that, and we could address that. I'm an anti-racist. I'm an anti-imperialist. I'm anti-wars of choice. Wars out of self-defense, that's an entirely different thing. That's defensible under international law, right? We have a right to defend ourselves from this fascist state right now, who calls people like me that put skin in the game. I went to Iraq. I went to the war. I did my job. I served 8 years honorably. I finished as a sergeant. I did 8 years. I volunteered to go to the Iraq war with my unit when I heard they were going to be going when I was about to get out and go in active ready reserve for 2 years. That is 6-2 contract. People that know the military stuff, they know what that means. Everybody serves for 8 years. Volunteer army, right? Like, I didn't have to sign up. I chose to. After 9/11, I felt compelled to serve my country. I joined the National Guard because I believe in defending our home, and I believe in helping our people out in times of need when there's, natural disasters and things. And I did that too. When our country's under threat, I helped out with that too. After the London bombings, we had intelligence that said there was a threat assessment, and some of the targets that we were concerned about were the New York City subway. I backed up the MTA, Mass Transit Authority, the Grand Central Station and Long Island Railroad for a month in the summertime, staying in abandoned apartment buildings that were condemned and were being demolished literally the day we were finishing up and leaving. But I've done my part, and I became disillusioned with why we go to war and why we were hurting other people around the world. And I realized now that it was for profit, for some pretty evil things like straight up terrorism. It's for global capital that is very interested in capturing natural resources and, exploiting that stuff for profit at the misery of a lot of people. Yeah, is there utility? I understand that. But I view the world's resources as all of ours, and I think we have to use those responsibly. And I think people that do the work should get a fair amount of reward for their work. I think they should be able to have more time off and enjoy themselves for their families. I think there's no reason to say that everybody who works for a living shouldn't have a better life than they do right now, which also means we should be guaranteed healthcare, one, as a moral thing, as an ethical thing, as a needs thing, but also because these motherfuckers have been poisoning us. They poison our food. They are the reason why we have so much cancer in concentrated areas around the country. There's actual evidence and all sorts of other ailments. Some things are just sort of, for lack of better words, naturally occurring, and others are human-induced. And for the human-induced things, and our governments failed to protect us, I think they owe us healthcare as a remedy. And I think the corporations that make a handsome profit all the time, and the wealthy people, their wealth should be taxed. We did better in this country, and they do better in other countries where taxes are a bit higher on the wealthy. After a certain amount, a lot of that wealth is going to be taxed. It should be taxed. I'm blanking on how I started this. That's fun. I get off on little tangents sometimes, don't I? Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well, and please follow along. I'm really worried where things are going. I think I was talking about the techno-feudalist thing. So, they're basically trying to have a control grid. I think that's what the AI data centers are really all about. I think they're probably doing it to set up their technates. Read up little, there's little blurbs and stuff about what Curtis Yarvin was saying. There's clips of these Silicon Valley guys that follow him. They're literally talking about how they could do it, where they can categorize people into blue groups, gray, and whatever else, because they feel that they've been outcast in San Francisco, and they're trying to push us out, and we're not allowed to just do whatever the fuck we want and be racist and misogynists, and we're such poor little boys. We only have billions, or we're only decamillionaires and billionaires, and we can have whatever the fuck we want all the time, but we're still crying. They're the biggest bedwetter cry bullies. It's fucking wild. But yeah, that's what they want to do. I think they're basically trying to put us on some kind of a fully controlled digital currency. And I mean, what's his name? Larry Ellison, I think his name is, from Oracle. He's literally talked about how even more mass surveillance would be a good thing, and using like drones and all sorts of stuff, to make us all behave. I know what that means. That's like, a techno-feudal fascist kind of ideology. Like, yeah, sure, let's expand the surveillance state more. Like, people that are like fear-mongering about China, the stuff they like the least about China. It's funny how that works when they're like supporting people that have, have the same kind of like techno surveillance lockdown as China does. Like, people are gonna give up more freedoms and like literally have us on like social credit scores. Like, it's wild to me how the right wing will like fearmonger about stuff, and they're like, oh, the left is doing this, when like sometimes I think it's just foreshadowing about what the right is actually up to and going to be doing in the future. Like, if you listen to them, like, I don't know, like pull up clips from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and listen to what they're accusing the left of. Like, I know that the right wing was throwing around the idea of like the left wants you to own nothing and have to like be on a subscription and or like rent only or whatever, and like it and like eat bugs. Meanwhile, that's what the right has done with, like, capitalists have done that. Like, now they're like what's Tesla do? You have like your base features, and then you have to like upgrade for a subscription to stuff that's already on board your car in order to use it. And then at like ICE detention facilities recently, I just listened to a story today about how they're feeding, people that are being illegally detained, most likely, actual worms, moldy food, milk that's like chunky, meaning it's gone bad. They're telling them, eat it or starve, I guess. But that's the right wing. They have expanded the surveillance state. They have expanded the police state. They're just violating our constitutional rights. They're acting like our rights don't exist anymore. They're calling anyone who disagrees with them or invokes their constitutional rights, protesting, standing up for their neighbors. Like, the real patriots were like our people out in Minnesota that were occupied by these paramilitary, untrained or sort of trained against actual standards and law. Like, they were given a memo that they weren't allowed to hold on to. Excuse me. Sorry, I had to get my dog. So the memo that they're shown, but they're not allowed to keep, says that they can just use what's called an administrative warrant that another ICE agent basically writes or signs, which is not in accordance with the law. And the right wing online will repeat that constantly as if it's true, but it's not true. You need a judicial warrant. You need a warrant signed by a judge to detain someone. That means that like they've been through a legal process already. Like, whether that's like a final removal order, or talk to a lawyer about this stuff. But a lot of people are playing internet lawyer because they just like the narrative that like they're basically trying to hide from accepting that they are Nazis and fascists by supporting what ICE and CBP and these other agents are doing. They like to pretend that it's legal, and it's not. Like, the courts have declared that 90% of detentions from ICE were illegal. And they're like, the court's order was like, you guys have to train these people. The problem is, the courts are still taking it on good faith about what's happening here. It's not that they haven't been trained. They've been trained against what the law is. Like, it's in bad faith. Like, I'm sure it's difficult to operate as a judge. Like, I'm sure they probably have a hard time getting in the headspace that the fact of the matter is, it can happen here because it's been happening here. Fascism has been, like, elements of fascism have been with us for a very long time in this country. The reality is, at different phases, like, it looks a little bit different. Like, fascism is something that people struggle with, but basically, you have like a dictator, an oppressive dictator in charge of the state. Simple terms. I borrowed that from Mossy Matriarch, who's got a lot of good content. Just commenting about the fact that, like, just because she studied fascism formally for her education, she's now being labeled a domestic terrorist because she knows about it and she opposes fascism. So do I. I'm the third generation of an American in my family that opposes fascism. My grandfather fought in World War II against the Nazis. He was in the Army Air Corps at the time, and a bomber they did the bombing raids, and he was an assistant tail gunner at the time. The only story I had from him was that his buddy saved his life and lost his life in the process. He pulled him out of the little gun turret thing and got him to safety as his friend got shot up. So we have a history of being opposed to Nazis, being opposed to fascists. It breaks my brain. I mean, it doesn't, because we have far-right people in this country. Like, conservatives don't need to be pushed all that far to accept fascism, because ultimately a lot of their ideas, like how they think we maintain liberty, is having a strong state, right? So there's elements of that that are okay in the matter of like self-defense. I have a problem as soon as you start turning on your people and you violate their rights. You do a mass police state where you're surveilling people and just assuming people on its face that they're criminals, which conservatives seem to do all the time, especially with black and brown people and leftists. They love to lie about the left, saying that the left is violent. I think they just mean that the left is critical of their bad ideas that are wrong, immoral, and unconstitutional. They think it's violence when you tell the truth. I think that's what it is. And the left is not violent, generally speaking. Like, we don't believe in, I mean, at least for myself and most leftists that I've talked to, like, we don't have any interest in violence. We acknowledge we have a right to self-defense. Like, there's no choice in that. And, you know, we also believe in our Second Amendment rights too. Like, the left is armed, and we will defend ourselves and our neighbors if it comes to it. I've struggled with that because I served in the military. I had to have arms on me quite a bit, and I kind of worried about the idea of having to carry in too many situations, because I just feel like it makes the situation more dangerous and more deadly by default. And I also know the stats about, in particular for veterans, I worry about having weapons, because a lot of our veterans have gone away, let's say, because they had weapons on them, and they were struggling with things that went untreated, because men in particular have a tendency to self-medicate or avoid getting help, avoid asking for help, and have habits that are just not beneficial for them, and I wish that would change. But yeah, we have a right to self-defense, but most of the time, based on the studies I've read, the vast majority of political violence comes from right-wing extremists, which is not surprising, because like Nazis, like their whole ideology is about basically just murdering people that they don't like. Like, they don't see any way to coexist with people. Same with the fascists. It's the same thing. They have an ever narrower set of people that they find acceptable, and also they're pretty self-destructive. And it's hilarious that they call other people degenerates that are just, you know, being who they are, like being born gay. Ooh, oh no, how terrible. Which is like, no, it's not a thing. It's not a problem. Trans people, not a problem. Generally speaking, no. Unless you've been radicalized. Like, there's right-wing extremists that are Nazis that are transgender people, but like most transgender people just want to live their fucking lives and probably just wish the right wing would stop, you know, menacing them and trying to commit a genocide of the trans people, among many other people that they want to genocide. Like, fascists have all kinds of deadly ideologies or policies and practices, like eugenics, right? Like, they don't see any reason to keep the elderly around, or the poor, or the disabled, which is disgusting. It's inhumane. I care because I've cared for those communities, and I see value in giving them a high quality of life. Like, it's not like they, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with people being disabled. Like, people are born disabled, or they become disabled, you know, for all manner of things that go wrong with their brains. You know, brain chemistry, you know, I don't mean to phrase it that way, but, and then people become disabled. You know, you can get in an accident and become disabled. You can have a stroke and become disabled. Like, you know, where would Republicans be without bad Democrats like John Fetterman, who was somewhat of a seemingly like progressive, then had a stroke, and then turned into a right-winger conservative who like kind of votes to help out the fascist Republican Party. Are they really against people that become disabled? I mean, they'd still probably say yes. But anyway, I'm rambling. I lost my train of thought again. Oh, with like, yeah, with the right, everything's like projection and confession, like lying about the left. Oh, the left-wing violence thing. I was going to say, the study that got deleted off the DOJ website, that the FBI you know, looked into this. Like, they just kind of just did the math and analyzed the different kinds of violence the different groups engage in. The right-wing extremists take the cake. Like, they have the most violence. That is like white men primarily, Christian men, and the left that got labeled as violent which I thought was interesting, wasn't actually really violence. It was like property crimes, like, and it's mostly white, college-educated, married women. I think most of them were married, and that was like people that are protesting against the companies that are contributing to climate change and destroying our environment and stuff like that. And they were like damaging equipment and stuff. The thing that like the right always says about like Antifa, literally, not an actual organization. So that's one. It's not like a centralized group at all. It's totally decentralized. It's an ideology of just being like against fascism, anti-fascism, fighting against fascism, which a lot of the tools of fighting fascism are like education about fascism. Being an anti-racist, addressing the problems of patriarchy, the problem of people who use some faux version of religion, or like extremist version of it that's like very mostly misinterpreted from like what the mainstream groups believe in, and using it as a shield to engage in violence or justify violence, misogyny, like being against people that are they want to have women in confined roles and control them, like, and showing up at political rallies where these folks will show up to counter protest, like the LGBTQ plus people and groups that are actually violent, like the far right people do engage in violence against LGBTQ plus people, and anti-fascists will show up and counter protest to protect those people in large numbers, and squash any of the violence that they can and push them out and create like a buffer. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So in my view, like, people that are anti-fascism are the most patriotic in the country because they're actually putting skin in the game to defend people's human rights and civil rights and civil liberties. And fascists are not that. Fascists are anti-American values, in my view. Fascists are anti-constitution. Fascists are anti-freedom. Fascists are violent extremists. Fascists don't see any way to coexist with other groups of people. That's why they're after, like, that they push white narcissism, right? And they're having a narcissistic meltdown right now. And they think they've won because the right wing has control over our government right now. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to fail. I think a lot of bad things are going to happen in the process because they're just going to have a little rage out, and that's going to be bad for people. And ultimately, I think the better people in this country that represent much of the world, that just want to live and breathe free of oppression, and they want to have a multicultural democracy or government that actually works for the people instead of a corrupt few that have basically stolen what they've had. Right? Like, my biggest complaint, I forgot to get gas. My biggest complaint with the way that we have our system is we basically legitimized the idea of like a group of people because they have money, and we've elevated them to some position that they're allowed to just go around the world and do violence, do mass theft, claim lands that they have no business claiming. Right? Like, that's my issue with what the United States sort of was, quote unquote, founded on. They found land, right? No, other people were here and they committed genocides. They enslaved populations of people. They wiped out their food sources, and like, they'll say, oh, to the victor go the spoils. No, that's barbarism. That's barbarism. The real winners throughout history are, matriarchies, women that use a wide skill set and, communicate and collaborate and work with other people peacefully. Those are successful as hell. That's sustainable because you didn't do it by, murdering a whole bunch of people and stealing their shit, which just makes you more enemies, right? Like, the real winners are people that cooperate and collaborate together. So, like, patriarchy is bullshit. The manifest destiny thing is bullshit. Like, you just made up an authority saying, oh, God told me, this is for us, so we're just gonna, claim this. That's nonsense. That's just theft. It's morally and ethically wrong. And if you believe that, you're wrong. You're just a fascist freak. You're a fascist freak. Like, it's blatantly unacceptable to just go around claiming shit that other people, like, if people were tending the land before you and you go and take it, you're the villain in that story. You're not the victor. You're the villain. You were wrong. Doesn't get made right because you have the ability to whitewash history. People will remember. And I think, like, a lot of white people get super paranoid about the idea that, like, if for some reason they lose power, in control. They're deathly afraid of like retribution, and they don't understand the fact that like people have had the ability to push back and take your shit the way you took theirs, and they didn't do it for fucking decades. They don't want retribution. They're just trying to survive. They want to live. They want to be able to thrive. They want a reasonable share so they can get the things that they need. They're not trying to jack your shit the way you did it. That's just a guilty conscience problem that you created for yourself. It's like a self-fulfilling thing. Like American exceptionalism is just such a stupid concept. Like basically it's saying the rules apply for everyone else except for us. Like fuck you. Fuck you. They're trying to show strength. Like you're just showing insecurity and narcissism. Malignant narcissism. I've seen other people lead far better because they're committed to actually like the needs of the people. And they're much more desired. They don't need to be feared by anybody. It's just stupid. Like, I hate the idea that we're stuck dealing with people that are like emotionally mature as like a 12-year-old, which is dangerous and deadly. That's not manhood. That's not nothing. It's flawed. It's a problem. We have to outgrow our worse ideologies. I'll just say that. I think it comes from having like people that come from privilege. Like, I think it's better when we have people that, you know, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I mean, I would much rather someone from my kind of background be in charge of things than these privileged assholes. Because the privileged assholes have psychopathy and sociopathy like baked in. They're not normal. Quote unquote normal. I mean, normal for like the broad population of people we have on this planet. Most of them are like working normal ass people. They're not selfish. I mean, honestly, I would rather somebody who's like was born like dirt poor be put in charge of the country, because they're way more generous. Poor people are the most generous people in the world. People that have had the least, that have lost the most, are the most generous people. They will literally give the shirt off their back when someone else is in need, even though they have basically nothing. You know, I heard stories recently about, this almost broke my heart, to be honest, like Palestinians that, you know, people were there just hearing their stories, and they would go and give people food, and they've had nothing for such a long time now, being starved to death, and they're helping. And then you have these Zionist psychos that are just like showing people pictures of the bombed rubble of Gaza that's left, and laughing about it. Massive difference between people that have humanity baked in because they're human beings having to be human beings, versus people that are told a story of entitlement. The irony of people talking about entitlement, like the wealthy people saying, oh, this is a problem, like Social Security is a problem, you know, earned benefits programs that lift 40% of seniors out of poverty, and they're going to shit all over it. Meanwhile, this guy's going to be a trillionaire soon. Please. I gotta go. Bye.